Have you felt it? That uneasy sense in the air? Something big is brewing in global trade, and it's getting harder to ignore. Once again, tensions are rising across the Atlantic. Europe is sending a very clear, very direct message to the United States. If America brings new tariffs, Europe will strike back. Hard. It's a story we've seen before. But this time, the stakes are even higher. And the world is watching closely. Because what happens next could reshape economies on both sides of the ocean and ripple out to the entire globe. Let's rewind for a moment. Think back just a few years ago. The United States, under President Donald Trump, imposed hefty tariffs on imported European steel and aluminum, citing national security concerns. It was a bold move, and it triggered immediate retaliation. Europe hit back hard. They targeted American cultural symbols, products like bourbon whiskey, blue jeans, and Harley-Davidson motorcycles. It wasn't random. It was strategic. Europe wanted the pain to be felt in key American regions, particularly areas that were politically sensitive. Now, here we are again. The whispers are growing louder. There's talk, serious talk, that if Trump returns to the White House, he might escalate things even further. A new wave of tariffs. Broader, deeper. And Europe is not about to be caught off guard this time. They're preparing early. They're setting the stage, because they know exactly what's at stake. So what exactly is on the table? Well, it starts with a bold proposal coming out of the United States. The Trump team is floating the idea of a universal 10% tariff on all imported goods. Everything coming into the U.S. economy. No exemptions, no special deals, across the board. And it doesn't stop there. There's a second, even sharper idea. Hit specific countries, especially tough traders like China and Europe, with even higher tariffs. We're talking about 20% for Europe, and a massive 60% tariff proposed on Chinese imports. Justification? Trump and his advisors frame it as a response to an economic emergency. They argue it's about protecting American factories, saving American jobs, and rebalancing a global trade system they believe has been unfairly tilted against the U.S. for decades. In Trump's own words, "We're not going to let our industries get destroyed anymore." It's a powerful message, especially to American voters in struggling manufacturing towns. But across the Atlantic, the reaction is fierce and fast. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen didn't mince words. She warned that the situation is spiraling out of control. She made it crystal clear. Europe is preparing to fight back. And not just with words. The EU is already drafting lists of American products that could be hit with retaliatory tariffs. They're identifying pressure points, just like they did before. Goods and industries that matter politically in the United States. And this time, the 27 EU member states are more united than ever. There's no illusion that Europe can afford to sit quietly and hope for the best. Why the urgency? Because Europe remembers what happened last time. The trade war during Trump's first term caused real damage, especially to industries like steel, automotive manufacturing, agriculture, and luxury goods. Billions in trade were disrupted. Jobs were lost. Prices rose for consumers on both sides. And there's another, more immediate fear this time around. If the United States blocks or heavily taxes imports from China, where do you think that flood of cheap goods will go? Exactly, Europe. Von der Leyen put it bluntly. We cannot absorb a flood of cheap products dumped on our markets. Without strong defenses in place, European industries, from tech to textiles to agriculture, could find themselves overwhelmed by a tidal wave of underpriced competition. So, what's Europe's strategy? 3 main pillars are emerging. First, prepare countermeasures. Not just reactive, but ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Tariff lists are being drawn. Negotiators are being briefed. Leaders are aligning their messages. Second, diversify trade partnerships. Europe is working hard to strike new trade deals with countries like Mexico, South Africa, Switzerland, and others. The idea is simple. Reduce dependency on the United States and China. Broaden Europe's access to global markets. Make sure that even if things go sideways with America, Europe isn't left isolated. And third, strengthen the EU's internal market. Push forward reforms that make Europe's 27 economies work more seamlessly together. Build up industries at home. Support innovation. Invest in green technologies, AI, and critical sectors, so that Europe's future isn't at the mercy of external shocks. In short, Europe is bracing for a fight, but it's also building a stronger house. Meanwhile, why is the United States leaning so heavily into tariffs again? It's rooted in Trump's America First economic philosophy. The belief that globalization, free trade deals, and international organizations have hollowed out America's industrial base. That American workers got the short end of the stick, while multinational corporations and foreign governments reaped the rewards. Trump's team sees tariffs not just as a defensive tool, but as a weapon to reshape the entire global trading system. They argue that by making foreign goods more expensive, you force companies to bring jobs and factories back to American soil. And there's a second, quieter motivation: revenue. Tariffs generate money for the government without raising taxes domestically. Trump has even floated the idea that someday, tariffs could largely replace the income tax, although most economists are skeptical about whether that's realistic. But critics warn that tariffs act like a tax on consumers, raising prices on everything from clothes to cars to electronics. And if other countries retaliate, which they almost always do, American exporters suffer. Specific U.S. grievances against Europe are plenty. The U.S. complains that European car makers sell far more vehicles in America than American automakers sell in Europe. They point to massive EU agricultural subsidies that give European farmers an edge over their American counterparts. They criticize digital service taxes that Europe has imposed on U.S. tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Facebook. They cite regulatory barriers, different safety and environmental standards that make it hard for American goods to compete fairly. From the American perspective, the system feels rigged. From the European perspective, these are just normal policies, not unfair tricks. It's a classic clash of economic philosophies, and this time, neither side looks eager to blink first. Risks of escalation are real and enormous. Already, the global economy is fragile. Inflation remains high in many regions. Supply chains are still recovering from the disruptions of the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Another major trade war could tip some economies into recession, or worse. And it's not just about economics. There are geopolitical stakes too. A bitter transatlantic trade fight could weaken Western unity at a time when countries like Russia and China are testing the international order. If the US and Europe turn inward, distracted by squabbles over tariffs, it leaves the field open for others to expand their influence. That's why, even as they prepare for confrontation, European leaders are leaving the door open for negotiation. Ursula von der Leyen and others are signaling that they want dialogue, not just retaliation, that they believe solutions can be found at the table before shots are fired. But they are also making it clear that Europe will not back down if forced into a corner. This is shaping up to be a critical test, not just of trade policy, but of political will. Can two of the world's biggest economic powers find a way to manage their differences? Or are we headed for another round of tit-for-tat escalation that leaves everyone worse off? At this point, it's impossible to say. There are too many moving parts. Politics in both America and Europe are volatile. Elections, leadership changes, unexpected events. Any of these could dramatically alter the path ahead. But one thing is certain: the clouds are gathering. The winds of protectionism are picking up speed, and both sides are building their defenses. The next chapter in the transatlantic trade story is about to be written, and it's going to be one hell of a ride. Stay tuned.